moment you start winning, something strange happens. The same people who once supported you become quiet. The same friends who laughed with you begin observing you. The same environment that once felt warm suddenly feels colder. No one says anything directly. No one openly opposes you. But something changes. The smiles become tighter. The compliments feel forced. The silence becomes heavier. And behind that silence, something dangerous begins to grow. Because success does not only attract admiration, it also attracts hidden resentment. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that people rarely hate you when you struggle. They feel comfortable around your limitations. Your struggles make them feel safe. Your failures reassure them. Your ordinary life keeps the balance intact. But the moment you rise, you break that balance. And when balance breaks, comparison begins. Comparison is silent but powerful. It doesn't need words. It doesn't need confrontation. It grows quietly inside the mind. Someone looks at you and measures their own life against yours. They don't intend to. It happens automatically. Your success becomes a mirror, and that mirror doesn't always reflect something they want to see. Machiavelli wrote that men are less offended by harm than by superiority, because harm can be justified, harm can be explained, but superiority forces someone to confront their own position. It forces them to acknowledge that someone close to them moved forward, while they stayed the same. This realization creates discomfort, and the mind tries to escape discomfort, sometimes by dismissing your success, sometimes by minimizing it, sometimes by quietly hoping it doesn't last. Not because they are evil, but because your growth disturbs their internal stability. Imagine two people walking side by side for years. Same conversations, same routines, same ambitions. Then one of them begins to change. They work harder, think differently, move faster. Suddenly the distance grows, and the one left behind feels it immediately. They don't say anything, but they feel the gap widening. Machiavelli observed that people prefer equality, even if it means staying average, because equality maintains comfort. No one feels inferior. No one feels pressured. No one is forced to change. But success destroys equality, and when equality disappears, emotions begin to shift. Some people respond with inspiration. They see your success and feel motivated. But others respond differently. They see your progress as a threat, not a direct threat, but a psychological one. Your existence now reminds them of what they haven't done, what they postponed, what they avoided. Your success becomes uncomfortable evidence. Machiavelli believed this discomfort is where hidden hatred is born. Not loud hatred, not visible opposition, but silent resentment. The kind that hides behind politeness, the kind that appears supportive, but hopes for your fall. This is why success changes relationships. Not because you changed, but because perception changed. You are no longer equal, and equality is what made the relationship effortless. Now every conversation carries comparison. Every achievement creates distance. Every step forward increases tension. Machiavelli described a court where a young advisor rose quickly. He was intelligent, calm, and respected. At first, everyone admired him. They praised his ideas, supported his rise, encouraged his confidence. But as his influence grew, the atmosphere changed. The same advisors who once welcomed him began whispering quietly. They didn't attack him directly. They didn't oppose him openly. Instead, they waited. They watched. They smiled. But inside, resentment was growing. Because his rise created imbalance, he was no longer one of them. He was above them. And being above others, even quietly, creates tension. Machiavelli noticed that those who lose status rarely confront openly. They don't want conflict. They want restoration. They want balance again. And sometimes, the easiest way to restore balance is to see the successful person fall. This is why hidden resentment often appears as subtle behavior. Less enthusiasm, fewer compliments, passive reactions, quiet distance. These signals are small, but together, they reveal the shift. The dangerous part is that this resentment rarely appears immediately. It grows slowly. At first, people celebrate your success. They feel proud to know you. They associate with your progress. But as time passes, the emotional equation changes. Your success becomes permanent, and permanence makes comparison unavoidable. Machiavelli wrote that people accept temporary superiority, but permanent superiority creates unease. Because temporary success feels like luck, permanent success feels like hierarchy, and hierarchy changes everything. When someone perceives you as higher, they subconsciously redefine the relationship. Either they admire you, or they resent you. And admiration requires humility. Resentment requires ego. Many choose ego. This is why some people secretly hate your success even if they once supported you. Because your growth forces them into a position they didn't choose. Either they must grow too, or accept being behind. Both options create pressure. Machiavelli understood that pressure breeds silent opposition. Not loud rebellion, but quiet resistance. The kind that never confronts you directly. The kind that hopes circumstances change. The kind that celebrates your mistakes internally. This hatred remains hidden because revealing it would expose insecurity. So instead, it disguises itself. It appears as sarcasm, as doubt, as subtle discouragement, as backhanded compliments. You might hear things like, "You just got lucky," or "It won't last," or "Things were easier for you." These statements seem harmless, but they reveal internal conflict. They attempt to reduce the psychological gap. Machiavelli observed that when someone cannot rise to your level, they attempt to lower your perception, not always consciously, but instinctively. It restores balance in their mind. This is why success isolates people, not physically, but emotionally. You remain surrounded by the same individuals, but the energy shifts, the equality disappears, and relationships begin to reorganize. Some become loyal, some become distant, some become quietly resentful. Machiavelli believed this is inevitable, because human nature resists imbalance, and success creates imbalance. The moment you stand out, you become a reference point, and reference points create judgment. People evaluate themselves against you. They measure silently, and when the measurement hurts, resentment begins. The most unsettling part is that this resentment can come from those closest to you, friends, colleagues, even people who once encouraged you. Not because they wish you harm, but because your growth disrupted emotional equilibrium. Machiavelli understood that proximity intensifies comparison. A stranger's success doesn't threaten you, but a friend's success does, because you shared the same starting point. And now the paths diverge. This divergence forces reflection, and reflection is uncomfortable. So instead of confronting themselves, some people quietly resent you. They don't celebrate your wins. They minimize them. They change topics. They react neutrally. Their energy shifts, but they never say why, because even they don't fully understand it. They just feel the imbalance. And the more you grow, the more visible that imbalance becomes. As this imbalance deepens, the resentment becomes quieter, but more calculated. It no longer exists only as emotion. It begins to influence behavior, subtle behavior, almost invisible. The kind that never looks like opposition, yet slowly changes the environment around you. Machiavelli observed that people rarely attack rising individuals directly. Direct confrontation is risky. It exposes intention. It creates conflict. Instead, opposition becomes indirect, quiet, strategic. The successful person is not confronted, but gradually isolated. Conversations begin to exclude you. Opportunities are not mentioned. Information arrives later than before. Invitations become less frequent. None of these actions appear hostile. Each one seems accidental, but together they create distance. This is not always planned consciously. Often it is instinctive. People move closer to those who feel equal. They move away from those who make them feel inferior. The distance grows naturally, and the successful person senses it without understanding why. Machiavelli wrote that men avoid those who remind them of their limitations, because every interaction becomes comparison. Every success becomes silent pressure. So instead of confronting this discomfort, they reduce exposure. They withdraw slowly. This withdrawal creates the illusion that success changed you. But often, it is not you who changed. It is their perception. You now represent something different, something uncomfortable. And the easiest way to remove discomfort is distance. But Machiavelli noticed something more dangerous. Not everyone withdraws. Some stay close, very close. But their intention shifts. They remain friendly, supportive, engaged. Yet beneath the surface, they begin observing your weaknesses, because if your fall restores balance, your weaknesses become valuable. This is the silent stage of hidden rivalry. No confrontation, no visible hostility, just quiet observation. The same people who once ignored your mistakes now notice them carefully. The same people who once encouraged risk now emphasize caution. Their tone changes. Their reactions become measured. They are not openly against you, but they are no longer fully for you. Machiavelli believed this is when success becomes most vulnerable, not when enemies oppose you, but when allies secretly question you, because open enemies are visible. Hidden resentment is not. He described courtiers who praised a rising figure, publicly while privately waiting for error. They did not sabotage directly. They simply withheld support at crucial moments. When the rising figure needed reinforcement, silence appeared. And silence can weaken influence faster than opposition. This is how hidden resentment operates. It does not destroy openly. It removes protection. It allows small mistakes to grow. It lets doubts spread quietly. It does nothing, and that nothing becomes powerful. Machiavelli wrote that a man surrounded by silent observers becomes fragile, because success requires reinforcement, encouragement, momentum. But when support fades subtly, confidence begins to fluctuate. The successful person feels something is different, but cannot identify it. People still smile, still speak politely, still appear friendly, yet enthusiasm is gone, energy is reduced, and momentum slows. This is the psychological effect of hidden resentment. It creates invisible friction. Nothing dramatic, just subtle resistance, enough to make progress harder. Another pattern Machiavelli noticed is the reinterpretation of your success. At first, your achievements are admired, but later, they are explained differently. People begin attributing your success to luck, timing, connections, external factors, not because they fully believe it, but because it reduces the gap. If your success is skill, they must confront their own lack of skill. If your success is discipline, they must confront their own inconsistency. But if your success is luck, they feel safe again. So the mind chooses the explanation that protects comfort. Machiavelli understood that people protect self-image more than they pursue truth, and your success threatens their self-image. So they adjust perception, quietly, gradually, until your growth feels less significant. This is why compliments sometimes change tone. They become softer, less frequent, more neutral. Instead of admiration, you receive acknowledgement. Instead of excitement, you receive calm reactions. The emotional energy disappears. And this emotional shift is often the clearest sign of hidden resentment. Machiavelli also described another reaction. Some individuals begin competing silently, not openly. They don't declare rivalry. They simply try to match your progress. But this competition is driven by discomfort, not inspiration. They compare constantly, measure constantly, evaluate constantly. Every move you make becomes a reference. And when they cannot keep up, frustration grows. This frustration does not always appear as hatred. Sometimes it appears as coldness, sometimes indifference, sometimes subtle criticism. The behavior varies, but the root is the same. Your success created comparison. Comparison created pressure. Pressure created emotional shift. Machiavelli believed this chain is inevitable when someone rises among equals, because humans seek equilibrium, and success disrupts equilibrium. The most dangerous part is that this resentment often hides behind normal interaction. Nothing dramatic. No arguments, no confrontation, just subtle changes, a delayed response, a muted reaction, a quiet absence of support. Individually, these signals seem meaningless, but together, they reveal transformation. Machiavelli warned that wise individuals must recognize this transformation early, not to fear success, but to understand its social consequences. Because success changes perception more than behavior, and perception shapes relationships. When you are equal, you are safe. When you rise, you become a reference, and references create emotional tension. Some people handle this tension by growing. Others handle it by admiring, but some handle it by quietly resenting. They don't wish you harm openly. They don't attack directly. They simply hope the imbalance corrects itself, that circumstances change, that your rise slows, that equality returns. This hope remains hidden, even from themselves. They still talk to you, still smile, still behave normally. But the emotional foundation shifted. And once that foundation shifts, relationships never feel the same. Machiavelli understood that success reveals character, not only yours, but everyone around you. Because when hierarchy changes, intentions surface. Some become loyal, some become distant, some become quietly hostile. And the most dangerous are not the hostile ones. The most dangerous are the silent ones. The silent ones never show their resentment directly. They don't criticize you openly. They don't oppose you in public. They don't argue with your decisions. Instead, they wait. They observe. They remain close enough to understand your movement, but distant enough to protect their own ego. Machiavelli believed this type of hidden hostility is the most dangerous form of opposition, because it hides behind normal behavior. It doesn't raise alarms. It doesn't create conflict. It slowly reshapes the environment around you while you remain unaware. He described individuals in political courts who congratulated rising figures with calm smiles, while quietly predicting their downfall. They did not interfere. They did not sabotage. They simply anticipated the moment when success would stumble. And when that moment arrived, they withdrew support. That withdrawal was enough, because success often depends on momentum. on confidence, on reinforcement from those around you. When that reinforcement disappears, even strong individuals begin to hesitate. Doubt enters silently, and hesitation slows progress. Machiavelli observed that hidden resentment rarely pushes you down. It waits for gravity to do the work. It does not attack. It simply refuses to hold you up. This is why some people secretly hate your success without ever acting aggressively. Their resentment is passive. They don't need to destroy you. They only need to stop encouraging you. They only need to stop celebrating you. They only need to stop believing in you. And that absence creates pressure. The most unsettling part is that this shift often happens without conscious intention. People don't decide to resent you. They feel it gradually. Your success changes their internal dialogue. They begin comparing more often, measuring more often, evaluating more often. Every conversation becomes a silent evaluation. Every update about your life becomes data, and slowly admiration transforms into discomfort. Machiavelli believed admiration requires distance. You admire those far above you, but when someone close rises, admiration becomes difficult because proximity intensifies comparison. A distant success inspires, a close success pressures. So the mind protects itself. It reduces admiration. It replaces excitement with neutrality. It hides discomfort behind calm reactions. This is why your biggest supporters sometimes become emotionally neutral after your growth. Not hostile, not negative, just neutral. And neutrality, in relationships, often signals emotional withdrawal. Machiavelli also noticed another subtle transformation. Humor changes. Jokes become sharper. Comments become layered. What once felt playful begins to carry undertones, not aggressive, but slightly diminishing. These small remarks serve a purpose. They attempt to reduce the perceived gap by lightly mocking your seriousness, your discipline, your ambition. They bring you back toward equality. It rarely sounds malicious, but repeated over time, it reveals discomfort. Machiavelli understood that people rarely admit feeling inferior. Instead, they reframe superiority. They call ambition arrogance, discipline obsession, confidence ego, success luck. This reframing protects their self-image, and it quietly diminishes yours. Again, not always consciously, often instinctively. Another behavior emerges in this stage. People become less curious about your progress. When you struggled, they asked questions. They showed interest. They engaged emotionally. But after success, curiosity fades, because curiosity invites comparison, and comparison invites discomfort. So conversations shift. They become surface level, neutral, safe. Your achievements are acknowledged, but not explored. The depth disappears. Machiavelli saw this repeatedly. Rising figures experienced shrinking emotional engagement from peers. Not hostility, but detachment. And detachment weakens bonds. Over time, this detachment creates isolation. Not physical isolation, but psychological distance. You remain among the same people, yet the emotional closeness fades. This is when successful individuals begin sensing something they cannot explain. They feel alone. Even in familiar environments, they feel observed, but not supported. They feel respected, but not embraced. Machiavelli believed this is the price of visible success. Because hierarchy changes emotional chemistry. You are no longer part of the group. You become a reference above it. And references are not treated the same. Some individuals adapt to this new position by becoming more reserved, more careful, more aware. They understand that success changes perception, and they adjust behavior accordingly. But others remain unaware. They continue expecting the same reactions, the same enthusiasm, the same closeness. And when it doesn't appear, confusion grows. Machiavelli warned that confusion is dangerous, because it blinds you to hidden dynamics. You assume everything is normal, while subtle shifts accumulate. He believed wise individuals observe energy more than words. Because words remain polite, behavior remains friendly, but energy reveals truth. When enthusiasm fades, when reactions soften, when conversations shorten, when curiosity disappears, something changed. And often, that change begins with your success. Machiavelli also pointed out that hidden resentment intensifies when success is consistent. One achievement can be dismissed, two can be explained. But repeated success becomes undeniable. At that point, comparison becomes constant, and constant comparison increases emotional pressure. Those unable to close the gap begin distancing internally. They don't withdraw physically, they withdraw emotionally. Their investment in your success decreases. Their reactions become measured. Their tone becomes neutral. Again, no hostility, just emotional distance. This is why some people secretly hate your success without realizing it. They don't wish you harm. They don't want you to fail consciously. but your success disturbs their equilibrium, and they unconsciously move away from what disturbs them. Machiavelli understood this as human nature. Not cruelty, not malice, just instinctive self-protection. The mind avoids discomfort, and comparison creates discomfort. So instead of confronting their own limitations, some individuals quietly reduce their emotional connection to you. Over time, admiration fades, support fades, closeness fades, and what remains is polite distance. This distance is the final sign. Not anger, not conflict, not opposition, just quiet separation created by your success. And this quiet separation is what Machiavelli considered the final transformation of success. Not enemies, not betrayal, but emotional distance that slowly reshapes your world. At this stage, something subtle happens. People no longer react to your success. They adjust around it. Your achievements stop surprising them. Your growth stops exciting them. Instead, it becomes something they quietly accept, while internally moving away from it. This is when success becomes lonely. Not because people leave physically, but because emotional alignment disappears. You continue moving forward. They remain where they are, and the gap becomes permanent. Machiavelli observed that once this gap stabilizes, resentment often transforms into indifference, and indifference is more dangerous than hatred. Hatred still pays attention. Indifference withdraws completely. The people who once compared themselves to you stop comparing, not because they feel equal, but because they no longer want to measure. They disengage emotionally. They accept the hierarchy silently. This is when relationships change permanently. You are still respected, still acknowledged, but no longer fully included. Conversations become polite. Interactions become brief. Energy becomes neutral. No tension, but no warmth either. Machiavelli believed this is the natural outcome of visible success among equals. Because equality creates comfort, and comfort builds closeness. But success removes equality, and without equality, closeness fades. This does not mean everyone secretly hates your success. Some genuinely admire it. Some feel inspired by it. Some grow alongside you. Machiavelli made this distinction clear. He believed true allies reveal themselves when hierarchy changes. Those who celebrate you even when the gap grows are rare. Those who support you without comparison are rare. Those who feel proud instead of pressured are rare. Success filters people quietly. It reveals who values growth and who values comfort. It reveals who is secure and who is threatened by comparison. It reveals who sees your rise as inspiration and who sees it as imbalance. And this revelation happens without conflict, without confrontation, without words. Just subtle shifts. Machiavelli understood that the wise person does not become bitter about this change. They expect it. They understand human nature. They recognize that comparison is automatic, that ego seeks balance, that discomfort creates distance. So instead of forcing old dynamics, they accept new ones. They stop expecting equal enthusiasm. They stop seeking constant validation. They stop explaining their growth. They simply continue moving forward, calmly, because trying to restore old equality is impossible. Once hierarchy changes, perception changes, and perception shapes everything. Machiavelli believed the strongest individuals learn to move quietly after success, not to hide achievements, but to avoid unnecessary friction. They remain composed, measured, observant. They understand that attention amplifies comparison, so they reduce noise. They avoid arrogance. They avoid excessive display, not out of fear, but out of strategy. Because visible superiority invites emotional resistance, quiet superiority invites respect. This is why Machiavelli advised leaders to balance power with calm presence, to avoid triggering unnecessary envy, to move with control instead of dominance. He understood that success already creates enough tension. There is no need to intensify it. And when you adopt this mindset, something changes again. You stop looking for universal approval. You stop expecting everyone to celebrate you. You stop being surprised by emotional distance. Instead, you observe calmly. You notice who remains warm, who becomes neutral, who withdraws quietly. And without confrontation, you adjust your own emotional investment. Not with anger, not with suspicion, just awareness. Because success is not only about rising, it is also about understanding the psychological consequences of rising. And one of those consequences is silent resentment. Not loud hatred, not open opposition, but quiet discomfort that grows in those who compare themselves to you. Machiavelli believed this is the hidden cost of standing out. You gain influence, but lose equality. You gain respect, but lose simplicity. You gain distance, even among familiar faces. And yet, this is not a negative outcome. It is clarity. Because when success reveals hidden emotions, it also reveals genuine loyalty. Those who remain supportive despite the gap become more valuable. Those who grow instead of resent become closer. Those who admire without comparison become rare allies. Success removes illusion. It shows you which relationships were built on equality and which were built on respect. It shows who was comfortable with you and who truly believed in you. Machiavelli understood that this clarity is powerful because once you see it, you stop misunderstanding behavior. You stop taking emotional distance personally. You stop expecting uniform reactions. You understand that some people secretly hate your success not because of you, but because of what your success represents. It represents change. It represents comparison. It represents hierarchy. It represents movement while they remain still, and this realization creates discomfort. So they withdraw quietly. They reduce enthusiasm. They soften reactions. They become neutral, not enemies, just distant. And once you understand this, you stop fearing it. You stop trying to win everyone's approval. You stop shrinking to maintain comfort. Instead, you accept the natural shift. Because success does not only elevate your position, it reveals human nature. It shows you that admiration is easy when you struggle, but difficult when you rise. Support is loud when you are equal, but quiet when you stand out. Closeness is natural when there is no comparison, but fragile when hierarchy appears. This is why some people secretly hate your success, not because they wish you harm, but because your growth forces them to confront themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. So they smile politely, they react calmly, they step back quietly, and the distance grows. Without a single word. Ultra-cinematic dark psychology thumbnail prompt. Ultra-cinematic portrait, dark psychological documentary style, dramatic low-key lighting, high contrast, moody atmosphere. A sinister intellectual man with messy dark hair and sharp angular facial features, deep wrinkles on forehead, intense piercing eyes staring directly at viewer, suspicious calculating expression, pale skin, long narrow nose, thin lips, slightly hunched posture. He wears dark vintage clothing resembling 19th century Gothic attire. Lighting, single directional light from above casting strong shadows across face. Half of face in darkness, chiaroscuro style. Cinematic color grading, warm brown and black tones. Background, blurred dark interior with soft vignette. Minimal details, mysterious ambience. Shallow depth of field. Style, hyper-realistic painting. Dark psychology, YouTube thumbnail, dramatic composition. Ultra-detailed, 4K, film grain, high-contrast ominous mood, intimidating presence, center framing, realistic skin texture, cinematic shadow depth.